What's going on, JP?
I'm having some issues.
Some technical difficulties
I'm having some
this
technical
evening.
difficulties here.
It happens to the best of us. I have a technical difficulty about once a day, it feels like.
I've had lots of technical difficulties this week.
You know this. My biggest technical difficulty is that I never remember my charger. And so my computer is always, it's chronically living on like 10%.
I know you. I remember you having to borrow mine.
I actually
I
brought
can
it up
vouch
to
for
somebody
that.
last night. I was
I can
like,
vouch for
oh,
that.
if JP was here, he'd be making fun of me. Oh, he would. How you feeling? You ready for the weekend?
Yeah, I'm always ready for the weekend. Always ready
We
for
got
the
one more
weekend,
day.
especially after last weekend. I'm ready for every weekend.
I I would agree with that. It's gonna be a good weekend. I'm excited.
Me and you both. We come off one test, go right into another one. This
Right
time
into
on the
the other
road.
one.
First true road series of the weekend of the
Well,
season.
before we get into it too much, thank y'all for tuning in to Rounding the Bases. I'm Ashby Mixon here with JP Priester and want to thank our sponsor, Mission Roofing. Mission Roofing is the go-to company for all residential roofing needs in the upstate of South Carolina. Whether it's a small repair, full roof replacement, or insurance restoration, Mission Roofing will provide a solution. Go check out their Facebook page and call or text 864-419-8173 for all your roofing inquiries. Well, JP, you already hit on it. What a weekend that Clemson baseball had. I mean, talk about the highs and the lows of watching and for as a player as well.
You know, you sit there the way that thing plays out Friday, you're feeling really good. Canucks on point. I mean, he's just dealing, mowing guys down the way we're accustomed to seeing him. And then Saturday, you think you're in a good spot because Darden's been so solid for most of the year, and then he gets some bad luck there in the third inning. Man, Josh Pano just had a terrible inning there, and Wake Forest ends up scoring. I don't even what was it. He ended up taking a 10-0 lead. I think they scored 8 runs in the third inning. And then you're sitting there saying, the way the thing started playing out over the 4th, 5th, you're sitting there, man, this thing, they might get run ruled. I remember telling somebody that in press box. I remember saying, we probably ain't going to be here too long today.
It's going to be a
And,
short one.
that's kind of taboo. I should have never said that because we ended up
I don't
being
know.
there
Maybe you
forever.
helped them. Maybe it was a reverse jinx. I don't know.
We ended up being there forever. I also remember telling another guy, I think it was Cole Bryson, the radio host there at USC or ESPN Upstate. I think when they started kind of chipping away, I kept telling I said, man, we've seen this movie before. I said, I don't know how this was going to end, but we've seen it. And they came up a couple runs short. They came up a hit short. I think they had the bases loaded in the bottom of the 9th, and they were down 2 runs. Came up actually just a few inches short because that any other day, heck, any other inning Saturday, Gerald's ball is liable to be hit. That's going out of there. That guy's not catching it. The wind happened to be blowing in that inning or that half inning. And then on Sunday, they do it again. They get down 6-0 right off the jump. Clemson had no business winning that game.
Absolutely not.
If Wake Forest would have just pitched halfway decent, Clemson loses that game, man. But because they didn't hit the ball well, they were like 1 for 13 with runners in scoring position through the first 7 innings. But they had I think they didn't have many base hits, and they had traffic on the bases all day because Wake kept walking guys, and eventually Clemson made them pay. You give that team too many opportunities, they're going to make you pay, and that's exactly what they did. And even more impressive, they did it without really having, they gave LeGarnick another shot because they had to use Bailey out of the pen Saturday. That goes back to last week, me saying it depends on what happens Friday and Saturday.
I thought of you. I really did.
And now he doesn't even make it out of the first inning again. And that just makes it that much more impressive. I mean, that bullpen has just been lights out this year. They got a 17-0 record, 12 saves, 3.12 ERA. Opponents are only hitting 208 against the bullpen, and they've got 177 strikeouts and 150 innings pitched. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I remember watching the Sunday game with my mom, the start of it, and I turned to her and I said, "Here we go again." It's going to be feels like the same thing, feels like deja vu. And then like you said, like we really couldn't get much going offensively. There was no flow to any of it. Like it felt like, all right, here we go, here's some momentum, and then nothing. And then you can't come up with a hit. You can't come up with a clutch hit, whatever. And so the bullpen, in my opinion, won that game for them 100% because, the whole situation at the end was awesome, but you're not in that position. You give up a big hit, a run here, a run there. And that's kind of been the story of a lot of the season, in my opinion. It's been them putting away games and allowing those comebacks to happen. I think we've now had 10 of our wins have been come from behind wins. You don't have that if your bullpen isn't as good as ours has been.
And I don't think they need to kind of bank on that happening 10 more times down the stretch now they get into ACC play. It's a lot more comfortable when you can get out to the lead and not have to keep playing from behind. But, I mean, they've shown time and time again, just going back to last year, 20-something comeback wins, that they're capable of doing it. They're never out of the fight. I don't care if it's 10-0, 6-0. That they've proven that they're never out of the fight. But if
It's
they're
not
going to
sustainable.
continue, if they're going to continue to play from behind like that, number one, I don't think is sustainable. But if they're going to do it, they better hit the ball better than they hitting it, than they did over the weekend. Came out and laid a dud against Coastal Carolina the other day. I mean, and I kind of halfway understand that. I think Eric Bakich even talked about it after the game about maybe not being quite as up for that thing after the emotional weekend. And he tried to push the right buttons pregame, and whatever buttons he pushed did not hit the mark.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. He essentially was like, this was our focus, was not coming out flat. and I was worried about it. But, this happens sometimes. This is baseball. And I actually asked him, I was like, Do you think it's a good thing that the turnaround from today to tomorrow is so quick? And he was like, That's the best part. That's the best part is we don't have to wait a week after we dropped, a bomb here. And we don't have to wait to clean it up. Like we can go out tomorrow, and they did, and they got huge, huge win over PC. And I think going into this weekend, that's really good momentum because I think it would be tough going from the Coastal game straight to an away series. I'm really glad they had that kind of buffer in between, and that was crucial. And you saw some hitting, which was also good.
Yeah, they needed some guys to come out of a funk that kind of been in a funk over the weekend. I know they gave Purified a day off Tuesday, and when you're playing these two midweek games week after week after week, you're gonna have to give some guys off. Sound like he might not be going to give him one off anytime soon again, though. But Gerald had the day off that day, but heck, even Coastal only had 5 base hits in the game. Clemson hit what was it, 7 batters
Yeah,
in that game, and then walked 5 more. So I think it was 12 free passes total.
12 free passes. You're not. I mean, if you're not hitting well, you're not going to be able to win games if you're giving up 12 free passes. You're just not.
I mean,
And
that's
that's just
that is not sustainable. You talking about something not being sustainable. Yeah, it was crazy. I didn't get to watch much of that game. I watched the back half of it. So again, I didn't get to see Noah Samo pitch. It's the 3rd week in a
I'll
row.
tell you, his first 2 innings were great, right? And that's all he's done in his Clemson career is have 2 his I think his longest outing was 2 innings. And so you get to that 3rd inning, he has never done that before, and it from the jump was like, "Okay, I think this is a little bit of a different situation this time." So, it wasn't pretty, but I was really glad they got to turn it around. And, there were some good moments, but the issue is just you didn't see that aggression and that drive to get on first base that they've had the first half of the season for the most part. And I thought there was a little bit of a lack of that sometimes in the Wake series too. Is you didn't have as many 9, 10, 11 pitch at bats. And you had a lot of guys, like there were some issues where, it was 3 balls and no strikes and we're grounding out. And I think that hurt too in the Coastal game, and that hurt a little bit in the Wake games at times.
In that Coastal game, one thing that you can almost bank on when this team plays, even if they're not hitting the ball well, they at least have quality at bats. They
Yes.
didn't have those against Coastal Carolina.
No.
Um, it was just a lot of weak ground balls, and they let the pitchers kind of set the tone. The Coastal pitchers kind of set the tone, and it's not something we've seen very often with this team this year. But every now and then it's good to take one on the chin that way, and maybe it'll serve them well heading into this weekend.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they had a couple tough midweek losses last year too that I was like, it was tough to watch. And then that weekend they go and play the best they have all season. So no need for concern look
Eh,
out of that game, but that's baseball.
Another thing is they're kind of experimenting with some of the pitching in these midweek games. Like we talked about Noah Samo, he was out all year. They're kind of letting him work himself back into you know being able to throw more innings, and they're doing it by allowing him to start these midweek games. Same thing with Talon Bell yesterday, who had the good first inning and then walked the first 2 of the second inning. And we're seeing some guys during the midweek that we don't see sometimes on the weekend. So they're giving some of those younger guys some opportunities, and there's going to be there are going to be some hiccups when you're doing that.
Speaking of Town Bell, what were your thoughts? First game, so good to see him out there. We've talked about how this could be somebody that helps Clemson baseball for a long time. What were your first impressions? What do you think his next steps are?
He's got superstar written all over him. he's got nasty stuff, and he's a left-hander, and he can get up into the 90s on you, man. That high heat's hard to catch up with, and we saw him get a couple of guys with it the other day. Um, Hopefully, it doesn't take him too long to kind of get stretched out and get amped up or ramped up or however you want to term it, because this team could absolutely use another starter right now. And I think he's a guy that maybe, 2, 3, 4 weeks down the road can kind of slide into that role. Um, he's also one of those guys. He gets fired up.
That's what I was gonna say. Yep.
He gets
There's some
fired up.
passion.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. He plays with passion. And to me, I always love to see the emotion after a big strikeout, man. And everybody's been waiting to see that guy. I don't think he disappointed in any way, and I don't think anybody was as upset as he was that he walked those two guys in the second inning. I'm willing to bet his next start goes longer than an inning, and the second inning's better than the second inning was yesterday.
Absolutely. I could tell. So he came in, had that first 3-pitch strikeout, and immediately it was just like the intensity and how passionate he was. It was so evident and so clear. And I think we need some of that, like you've got guys that are super fired up, super intense, but I think having another pitcher like that, especially if you can get him as a starter, that would be pretty awesome on a Sunday. I would not be mad about that at all.
Yeah, but they got to find another. They got to find another starter to get them till then.
I think I still stand by what I said last week. I think if things go to plan, I think we're looking at BJ Bailey on Sunday. And, he was good again in his outing this week.
So do I. I'm sticking with that. I think they're going to make it a point to do it this safe, or at least save somebody for Sunday, not name Legwernick. They save Legwernick for Sunday in case they need it. It needed to be him to start, and it turns out it needed to be him. I think they'll save somebody else this time. We got the TBA for Sunday, so they left it open. But I would be outright shocked, no matter what happens, if it's Legwernick again. I think he got his extra opportunity this weekend, didn't make the most of it. You got to give somebody else a turn, and I think they're gonna hold. I think it's gonna be BJ Bailey they hold and let him roll on Sunday. It could also be Titsworth. We talked about last week. Joe Allen started 4 games 2 years ago. Didn't start any last year, but if it's me, I'm probably rolling BJ Bailey out there because he's, to me, he's kind of best suited to serve in that role right now in this moment.
Absolutely. I mean, this past week had 1 hit, 1 walk, and 3 strikeouts in an inning and 2/3. Another good outing. He's solid. We know that he's gone 4 innings this year, I think was his longest. So I think that's the candidate. I really do. And, you know, I think you have some room for experimentation over the next few weeks until you get a Talon Bell fully healthy. I think you give people chances and, whoever takes the opportunity, I can see winning that role even at this point halfway through the season.
I mean, Bailey's got a 0.43 ERA in 21 innings, 25 strikeouts in those
He's been
21 innings.
great.
And he's only walked 7. He's only given up 12 hits, and he's only walked 7. I mean, to me, he's I think he's earned that opportunity. Absolutely.
I think he has too. I think it's gonna be interesting. He's somebody that I've been pleasantly surprised by this year. There's been a lot of things like that so far. We're at the halfway point of the season. What have been some of your things that you've been surprised by? Have they lived up to your expectations? Have they exceeded expectations? Where are you sitting with how you think about them right now?
I think they've lived up to expectations, but not playing at the level that I think they can play. There's been a couple of disappointing things so far to this point in the season. To me, none bigger than Colin Priest.
Yes,
Um, he's just, for whatever reason, he just continues to struggle. It continued over the weekend. His batting average is down to 205. I mean, he's a guy I thought would give him 15 home runs this year. So far, he's got 3, and he's been hitting in the cleanup spot behind Cam Canarella. And when he's struggling, that mightily, nobody's going to pitch to Cam. He's not going to hardly get anything to see because you'd much
Nope.
rather pitch to Priest. Just like in the Wake game Saturday. Once that wild pitch happened, the runners move up to second to third in the ninth inning, they're going to walk Cam. He's
Yep.
not going to see anything. That's exactly what they did. Priest ends up popping it up. I was glad to see he was not into I was glad to see Gaffney in the cleanup spot yesterday behind Canarella. Hopefully it'll stay that way. I mean, I'm a guy that believes in, letting your hitters hit their way out of slumps, but I'm not sure I believe in doing it from the cleanup spot.
I agree, especially when you have a Cam right in front of you. And, I think it's been really good to see Luke Gaffney get going over the last few days. I mean, he's had 6 hits in the last 5 games, hit a home run last night. It looks like he's seeing the ball well. Looks like he's providing kinda some of that spark that we hoped that we'd see from him. What do you think has been the thing that's gotten him going?
I think he's just kind of settled in. I don't know that it's anything specific. Sometimes it's baseball. You're gonna have those stretches where you don't hit the ball as well. And again, I think you just got to hit your way out of them. I think that's kind of what he's done. Um, he's kind of been moved around in the lineup, or he was a little bit earlier in the season, moved around in the lineup a little bit. He's kind of settled in that 5 hole now. I hope he moves up a spot for good, but um, I just think he's just kept hacking away, and he's starting to have some balls, find some holes, and he's starting to settle in, and he's starting to put good contact on the ball. And he's another guy I thought would hit 15 home runs this year. I think we'll have 4 right now.
I think but that's one back from leading the team at this point, so
Yeah, this team's not hitting as many home runs as I thought they would. I've said it plenty of times. I didn't think they'd hit like they did last year because you had 40 something between 2 guys. I didn't think they were going to be able to do that, but I did think they'd hit a little bit more than they have. Maybe they'll start hitting a few more as the season keeps going, and as it warms up outside. But I kind of think from a power standpoint, they probably are who they are at this point. I mean, heck, even Canarella's only hit 1. He hit double digits last year, so his power numbers are down too. But they are they've kind of met my expectations at this point, and they've done it without having played their best ball. I don't think they played their best ball yet. Again, you got Gaffney just now starting to come around. Canarella's been a little up and down. It looks like he's getting back into it, and then he'll have a game or two, or like against Wake. I don't think he had any hits on Friday, no hits on Saturday, no hits through the first half of Sunday. Then he comes up with 2 big clutch hits. So I think it's a testament to the mental makeup of this team that they're able to win in different ways and win when they're probably not playing their best offensively.
yeah, looking at their offensive stats through this point, they're hitting 287 as a team. Jaron Purify's leading the team, hitting 369, and 5 of your 9 guys are hitting below 270 right now. When you're
Absolutely.
winning games and you're beating teams that are as good as Wake like that, I think it's a really good thing, but it's the same thing as coming from behind. I don't know how sustainable that is. And we've talked about, the ceiling of this team is, going to Omaha, doing all the things. I don't know if that is sustainable to reach their full potential.
They're going to have to hit the ball better than they have been over the past, I don't know, week to 10 days. Absolutely. If they want to make that kind of postseason run,
Yeah.
they're gonna have to get more from Colin Priest. They're gonna have to get a little bit more from Jacob Jarrell. Crichton's falling below 280. Another guy that I think's been, kind of a big disappointment at this point in the season is Becerra. He's down to 246. He's only hit 2 home runs and 65 at bats. That's a guy that I think they were counting on to be, a big part of the pop in the lineup, and it's just not played out that way. McClatty's kind of all but taken over that role out there in right field over the past, I don't know, what is it, a week or so.
And has earned it.
Yeah, he's earned it. He's hitting well over 300. I mean, he's a spark plug on the base. His stolen base in that ninth inning, won
Won
that
the
game.
game.
Yeah, I mean, they might not win it if not for that. Yeah, he's hitting 317. Heck, he's got 3 home runs. I had heard that he had a really good fall and a really good preseason and it's shown a little bit of pop, but I didn't know that he was going to be, among the team leaders in home runs at this point. But that's saying more about the other guys than him. But yeah, Bakich had a pretty short leash with Crichton. The other day he had one bad at bat where he hit that little flare to second. And next thing you know, Becerra's in the game. And then next thing you know, McClatty's in the game. So
Do you think that
they're going to need some more out of some of those guys.
yeah. Do you think that any of the hitting struggles, and this is just, purely hypothetical, do you think any of it is coming from the lineup changing so much and being in different positions every day, and do you think that has an effect on it?
I don't know. I know when I played baseball, I didn't really care where I hit. It didn't much matter to me. It can impact what kind of pitches you see, depending on who you are and how well you're hitting the ball and who's behind you. So, I mean, it plays a part in that regard. But I remember when I played, I didn't care. I didn't care if I was hitting leadoff, second, fifth, sixth, whatever. I just wanted to bat. So I mean, I guess it could a little bit depend. It could impact how guys pitch you, depending on where you are in the lineup and who's behind you and how well they're hitting as opposed to how well you're hitting. So I mean, there's a lot of things that can factor in. I just think you got a few guys right now that are kind of slumping a little bit. I think that's probably more so than anything.
I was more saying, like, do you think not playing for 2 games and then you get a chance to go in, do you think the pressure of that contributes to not hitting well?
Now that yeah, okay. Yeah. When you're not playing every day, yeah, that can
And
absolutely factor in. It's harder to get into a rhythm.
right,
You're not seeing it every day, particularly a guy like, Crichton, who came out on fire and he's still kind of platooning out there. It's hard to get into a rhythm when you're playing once every 3 days or even less than that. Same thing for Pacetta. Um, credit to McClatty for being able to do it. But for the most part, the rest of those guys are pretty much playing every day.
right.
So
No, that's definitely not the answer because there's guys that are everyday starters that are still struggling. But for the Tristan Bissettas and Jack Crichtons of the world, I wonder if that has been part of it. I don't know. But will definitely be interesting to see who he goes with this weekend. First away series. That's gonna come down to, who do you trust to put out there, and how do you think they respond to, "We're not at home, we're playing a really good team." What do you think are gonna be the keys to coming home with a series win?
hitting the ball, they're gonna have to hit the ball better this weekend because this team's kind of like Wake Forest. They can rake.
Listen to this. They are 4th in home runs and 1st in batting average and 2nd in on-base percentage in the ACC. This is a team that is really, really solid. And let me find where I put it. They also, I believe, are 2nd or 3rd in ERA. So, this is a really solid team. Like, it's gonna be a tough matchup, and you don't walk out of there, I don't think, going down 6 to nothing.
you, they don't have the power that Wake has, but they're hitting 344. They got one guy that's hitting 415. They got another guy that's hitting 400. Another guy, Lotus, who Clemson fans should be very familiar with, he's hitting 380. Another one hitting 351. Another one hitting 351. I mean, they've got a bunch of guys that are hitting over 330. They don't have anybody on the team they don't have anybody in double digit home runs yet, but they got one. Lotus has got 9. They got another guy with 8 and another guy with 8. So they got some pop. Maybe not quite as much as Wake, but they got plenty. Their on base percentage is 441. I mean, this is a good offensive team. They hit the ball. They put guys on base. They put pressure on you. You're going to need to get more from Darden than you did, last Saturday. And again, I know some of that had nothing to do with him. He got some bad luck there in that second inning or third inning. And you're going to have to get more from your Sunday starter. You can't keep
Whoever
living
he
on the edge. Yeah, you can't keep living on the edge the way that I think they did this past weekend. That's not the way you want to do it. It kind of leaves you spent, and you see what happened, and then you get what happened on Tuesday.
I think I think Ethan Darden has a really good outing this week. I don't see it happening again. I don't see the defensive issues happening again. Need Aiden Canuck to play like he has in the last 2 weeks because it's been exactly how we remember from last year. He's been so solid, and I think if he continues on that trajectory, we're in the spot to win the first game most every weekend. And so I think you gotta jump out with that first win.
Yeah, that absolutely puts you in prime position. You don't want to waste the opportunity that Canuck gives you with those kind of outings he's had the past 2 weeks. When he's striking out 10 or striking out 12, and he's holding the opponent down and they're not scoring, you don't want to waste that opportunity. That's a game you want to come away with the win, and it kind of sets you up for the rest of the weekend. You don't have to.
Sets the tone.
It takes a little bit of the pressure off. You don't have
Mhm.
to worry about winning 2 straight to win the series. You kind of you got a little wiggle room there, but it also, again, I talked about it last week. That's why I think the Sunday spot's so critical. You don't ever know if you're looking to not get swept, or you're looking to win the series that day, or looking for the sweep. It's one of the three, and that's why they got to get that figured out. And hopefully we see some progress in that department this weekend, because I think it was Sunday after. Yeah, it was Sunday. And I can't remember who asked Bakich about it. It might have been Aaron Fitt asked him about the Sunday spot, and I wish I could remember the exact quote, but basically Eric said, "Yeah, that's not. Hey, we can't have that. That's just." I think he said that's not the recipe, if I'm not mistaken. When your Sunday starter doesn't get out of the first 2 weeks in a row, he said that can't happen. So.
You can't win.
Nah, I mean, and they were fortunate, to come back and win that game Sunday, because again, you got some help from the Wake pitchers, and they started to find their groove late in that game, but they were able to get back in it because of all the walks that and credit to them for taking them. That comes back to having quality at bats.
For sure. Completely agree. It's gonna be a good series. I'm excited. I think the keys are gonna be hitting the ball, putting the ball in play, and that Sunday starter. It's gonna be huge.
Yeah,
I'm interested.
I kind of, it seems to me like Clemson that Atlanta's not been very kind to Clemson baseball in recent years, and I had every intention of going to look it up before we jumped on here. I wasn't allowed to, um, so I didn't do it. But if memory serves me correct, that's not been the kindest of venues to Clemson. Maybe they will start rewriting that history this weekend.
I'm sure hoping so. I think it's this weekend's kind of a crossroads in my mind, the way I'm thinking about it. And it's either, all right, you show that you can soundly pick up a series win over a really good team, start hitting the ball, proving all these, things wrong, or you stay in the same struggle with the hitting and everything, and then you're in a tough spot going into more conference play and playing really good teams. So I'm really hoping they come out as their best and we see the best from everybody. I think if you do that, I think it's a series win, two to
Yeah,
one.
I don't want to make it sound. I don't want to make it sound like we think the sky is falling or anything, because that's
No,
certainly
they're
not the
24 and
case.
4. Okay,
Exactly.
they're
Um,
24 and 4. Everything's good, y'all.
yeah, and they're 24 again. They're 24-4 without having really played their best baseball yet. I still think that's ahead of them. And I think they've got options for the Sunday spot. I think they'll get that figured out. I just hope, if you're Eric Brackett, you hope it doesn't take another couple of weeks. You hope you can, you put the right, whoever you slide in there this weekend is the right guy and he can stay there for a little while. Um, and I also think that some of these guys that have struggled at the plate of late, they're going to start coming around and hitting the ball a little better. Um, you know, heck, Priest can't get much worse than he's been at the plate the past couple weeks. I hate to say that, but that's just the fact of the matter. Um, so I mean, and same thing with Becerra. They've both been struggling pretty good here lately. I think it's a testament to this team that they have only lost 4 games at this point, and they've not played their best baseball yet. They've shown flashes of it here and there. I thought we saw some of it against South Carolina. Thought we saw some of it Friday night against Wake. Thought we saw some of it Sunday late against Wake. But that was on a day when you didn't get a good outing from your Sunday starter again. But when this team puts it all together, and I feel confident they will,
Dangerous.
they're gonna be a tough out. I still think they've got all the pieces to make a run to Omaha. And as you get deeper into this season, and guys like Talon Bell get more healthy, and you can depend on them to go longer and pitch more pitches, and you get a Michael Gillen back, even if it's another 2 weeks down the stretch, but that means you'll have him ready to roll by the time postseason play rolls around. That's just going to make this team more dangerous. And again, I'm not sure they're going to hit as many home runs as I thought they'd hit, but I still think they're a dangerous hitting team. You don't have to hit a bunch of long balls to be really good. There's other ways that teams can beat you when they don't rely on the long ball for victories. And this lineup's got a lot of speed in it. There's a lot of things they can do on the bases to kind of offset that not having that as much power as maybe we thought they would. But this is going to be a good one this weekend. I would not be shocked to see them drop their first series. I'm not predicting it, but it would not shock me. I'm going 2-1. They take Friday, they take Saturday, and lose Sunday.
Fair enough. I think I would have to agree with you. I think it just all comes down to what we were talking about. If they can turn some things around from recent struggles. But I mean, even if they don't, like this is still a really hard team to beat. And you don't want to be playing your very best baseball in what is it, March? They got lots of time. It's a long season. I think they probably are feeling passionate about winning this weekend. So I think it's a 2-1 series win, and I'm excited about it. I think it's gonna be a good one.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to believe we're already at the halfway point.
I
But
know, it feels like we just started this about 4 minutes ago.
but
Also, JP, we need to talk about the biggest win from last week, which was your daughter singing the national anthem.
yeah, she kind of killed it,
She
man.
killed
It's
it.
If you've not seen it, I posted it on Twitter. I didn't hear it, but I heard Qualt gave her a shout out on the radio the other day, so I appreciate that.
She get her voice from you?
Hell no. I remember when she did it last year. Um, when we walked in the post game, Coach Packard said, "I know she didn't get that from you." Nope, she didn't get it from me or her mother. I don't have any idea where she got it. But
That's so awesome. I love it.
I'll tell you another cool thing. I'll tell you a cool story about that. She went out there about 11 o'clock Saturday morning because she wanted to do a sound check. She just wanted to hear, the volume of the stuff. And
So fair.
so she went through it, and there were about a dozen guys or so out on the field. Jack Leggett was in the dugout. The guys out there were playing. They were tossing the ball around, and Jack Leggett sitting in the dugout. And as soon as she started singing, all of them stopped and Jack Leggett took his head. I mean, it was pretty cool, man. Even though she
That's
was
so
there
cool.
practicing, that tells you how kind of patriotic Eric Bakich is. You see the stuff about with the players going up into the stands to shake the veterans' hands in the fourth inning, and he kind of he makes every effort to make sure somebody's there live singing the anthem every game. It doesn't always happen, but they make the effort. His daddy's a military man, so he was brought up in that, and it's something he takes very seriously. And you could tell, you could tell, man. As soon as she started, they all stopped and stood at attention. It was pretty cool.
That's one of those things where it's like, okay, they actually walk the walk. This is something that you truly believe in and talk about. I remember Jack Crichton talking about in a press game or a press conference a couple weeks ago, talking about how much personally, like, he's feels like he's learned so much about veterans and gained a new respect from them and all this stuff. And that all starts at the top with Coach Backich. And so I think that's really cool to see that, even when nobody was there, that's still how they're treating that. And I think if I was your daughter, that might make me a little bit more nervous. But you know what? She probably
She
killed it then too.
she don't. I remember last year I was expecting her to be nervous. She did it on a Tuesday last year, and there weren't a lot of people there. It was
Still,
a midweek game, so I was still expecting her to be nervous. And if she was, she hit it very well. I couldn't believe she wasn't at all. And this time, she had one of her friends with her. Came up and watched, and
cold
man,
blooded.
ice water in her veins. Which I mean, she's kind of used to it now. I mean, she sings a lot at different
She's a
things,
pro.
and I mean, but that was I think that's that there was 4,400 people there Saturday or something like that. So that's probably the biggest one. That's probably the biggest crowd she's done it in front of yet. But yeah, she killed it, man. It was even much better than last year's, and last year's was pretty good.
Listen, that had to make the Saturday game better for you, JP.
Yeah, didn't much matter that they lost. And when they got down 10-0, I remember I had walked down there because my wife was there too, and I had walked down there. She was sitting with a couple of friends of mine, um, down there in the stands. Matter of fact, one of them's this guy right here. And I was telling her, I was like, man, they might not never let her come back now. You know how superstitious baseball people are.
She's done.
But then
That's
even
awesome.
though they didn't come all the way back, they came back. So,
Exactly. It wasn't a hard listen, y'all came back. It's not on me. Couldn't get it
that's
done.
that's right.
I love it.
They had the opportunity.
So you think she'll do it again this year, next year?
If
Got to
she
get her to a
wants,
football game.
if she wants to, I thought somebody offered her a spot to sing at one of the drives games here
That's
sometime.
awesome.
So we'll see. She wants to do a basketball game. I've told her I don't know if I can get her set up with football, but I might could do basketball. We'll see.
For sure. Absolutely. I can see it. Well, I'm excited to see her live next time. I will be there. I can't wait. I'm so upset I missed it. But
Not on spring break next time.
yeah, not on spring break. Man, you got everybody back. Everybody's ready for some baseball here in Clemson. All the Clemson students are ready. They're all locked in now.
Yeah, I'm telling you, those were pretty good crowds they had there this weekend. Eric Backus made the plea for the place to be electric, and it was, man. It was a raucous crowd.
There were a
Well,
lot of people at that Coastal game, to be honest with you, for a midweek game. Like, it was
those
pretty crowded.
those usually do pretty well. I've been to
Yeah,
a few, I've been to a few midweek games against Coastal up there, and those are usually well attended. And same goes for when Clemson plays Coastal over here in Conway.
absolutely.
It's usually jam packed here.
It's gonna be well, we get them again in what, like a month or so, so
Yeah, later on in the season, Clemson will play them in Conway.
there you go. Well, it's gonna be interesting. Excited for a series this weekend. Gonna be watching it, not making the trip down to Atlanta, but I'm excited to see them hopefully get another series win. It's gonna be a good one.
Let's see. Georgia Tech's going to roll out right-handed pitcher Tate McGee on Friday. right-handed pitcher Brady Jones on Saturday, and just like Clemson, TBA on Sunday.
Sunday's gonna be interesting.
Yes,
It's
it
up for
will.
grabs.
Yep. We might see a lot of bullpen arms that day. It
It's a
might be one
bullpen
of them
day.
long games.
4 or 5 hour game. Y'all better lock in.
Because it seems to be. I want to say a lot of those times when Clemson goes to Atlanta and plays there, man, those are some high scoring games as is. So I might be wrong. My memory's not what it used to be, but it seems like a lot of them are pretty high scoring.
It's gonna be fun. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in to Rounding the Bases this week. Want to thank our sponsor, Mission Roofing, for all your roofing needs in the upstate South Carolina area. Thank you so much for tuning in, and make sure to subscribe to the Clemson Insider for all your baseball coverage this weekend and for the rest of the season. Uh, we'll see y'all next week. We're excited.
7 p.m. See y'all then.